Okay, we're gonna call this meeting to order tonight. Roll call, please.
Elton.
Here.
Pritchard.
Here.
Nystrom.
Here.
Teben.
Here.
Melhouse.
Here. Okay, recognition of visitors, who do we have?
I believe we have someone that would like to go ahead and speak at this time,
Okay.
I think.
I'll give one to an hour to hearing your delegation, but.
You
I don't-
tell
I don't
me.
do either one. Same thing.
Either one.
We don't have a board event this month.
No.
Okay, so let's get to the agenda, consideration agenda, and then we'll get to the hearing.
Okay.
Consideration agenda, any changes, modifications to the agenda? Any questions, concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Dr. Nystrom, seconded by Mrs. Stevens, to approve the agenda as printed. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is hearing of delegation. This is the time to decide to listen to anyone from the audience who'd like to speak about anything on the agenda or anything else that their heart desires. Is there anyone that would like to speak about anything on the agenda? I'll recognize, would you please stand up and state your name for the record?
Yeah, my name is Travis Patterson.
Can you walk up here a little bit so we have this
The owl.
owl here?
Look in the eyes.
Hi,
Perfect, thanks.
My name is Travis Patterson. I've written this board in the past about the public's perception, and I would like to again voice my concern about perception. It was stated in the previous board meeting that prom was already on the district calendar and therefore did not need to be discussed because it was not an actionable item. I and many other parents noticed, excuse me, noticed that prom was on the board agenda tonight, so logically, I am worried that it will be canceled or reduced to something not resembling prom. Well, technically, I'm not really worried, but I do have a few young ladies that I consider at the minimum my nieces that are definitely worried, as are their mothers. Prom is an event that they will remember forever. To this day, prom is brought up in conversation by my wife and all of my female friends. Excuse me. It's not the COVID, I promise. Plans to attend the HS prom have already begun. Girls have been asked, hair and nail appointments have been made, and dresses have been purchased. The district and county COVID numbers are way down, sports are being played, band concerts are happening, and leadership conferences are being held. Prom has not been canceled up to this point, and I do not see any reason to do so or to restrict it now. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Or if the other gentleman here, can you please step around here and give your name?
My name is Mark Peter. I have Reagan Peters, my daughter. She's a senior doing high school. I just wanted to speak briefly on, I understand that part of the conversation around prom this evening could focus on out-of-district guests being brought by the students. I just wanted to give my thoughts on that. I have a couple of points. I don't have any clue how many the number would be. I understand that there was a survey that came out. Maybe that information will be later brought forth, but to me, it doesn't matter if it's 10 out-of-district guests or 100. I believe it to be a non-issue. A couple of reasons for that is, one, however many non-district guests we have coming in, I don't think it's a big leap to assume that we have about that number of Boone students that are probably attending a prom at their guest home school. That is the case in my home. Our daughter has a boyfriend that lives in Madrid. I assure you, she will be at the Madrid prom the week before the Boone prom is scheduled. So I don't think a cross-contamination or bringing something in is really viable. They're already spending time together outside of the school hours. And I don't think bringing a group of kids in as guests is going to be an issue. Another big thing I wanted to bring up tonight is, and I don't expect you guys to know this is going on, but I think it's important because I think it really deals with large group of students inside in a given area. The 4 years my daughter has been in high school, she's been very involved with Technology Student Association, the TSA. It's a statewide activity that's done in many, many districts all over the state. She's been very involved with it. In fact, she's been a state officer for 4 years and is serving as the state president this year. Yesterday afternoon, Reagan traveled down to Des Moines and met with the other state officers because they're preparing, and today they welcomed 250 kids from multiple districts all over the state of Iowa, from corner to corner. 250 kids and their sponsors are down there today, this evening, and tomorrow doing their state convention. They are having their business meetings, they are holding their elections, they are doing their competitions, they're eating meals together, they're spending the night together at Adventureland Inn Hotel. The TSA program has been very COVID friendly, very COVID aware. The fall retreat was canceled last year, many of them, or last fall. The state convention was canceled last spring. The national convention was canceled over the summer. Many of the meets have started out virtually or were greatly reduced. This is the only time they've gotten together all year. And I believe if the state TSA believes they can bring 250 students and sponsors together in an inside situation and do that safely for 2 days' time, I strongly believe, actually I'm going to change that. I am confident that our administration at Boone High School can safely manage a prom with outside guests for 3.5 hours. Every day I send my daughter to school, I put my faith, trust, and well-being in the hands of Mr. Byam and this administration. I have full confidence and trust what they have done over the course of the year to essentially completely mitigate any community transfer of COVID within these school walls will still go on prom night. I strongly encourage you to not only support prom tonight, to support any recommendation by Mr. Byam, and that would include allowing outside guests to attend prom at Boone High School. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Do I hear from anyone else on the Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Routine business. Do I hear a motion for the routine business?
I move to accept the routine business, except in the normal board bills, in the general fund, there's a bill for purchase for $99.80. And under the physical plant, there's a bill for purchase for $611.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, it's moved by Mr. Stevens, secondary by Mr. Elfon, to approve the routine business consent agenda as granted with extraction of 2 purchase bills, one of $99, another one of $611. Is there any further discussion? Any questions from board members about anything on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Now I entertain other motions.
I move that we accept the bills for purchase funds for $99.80 out of the general fund and $611 out of the physical fund.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Stevens, seconded by Dr. Nystrom to approve the 2 purchase bills, one of $99 and the other one of $611. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Abstain. Good. The motion passes unanimously with Mr. Pritchard abstaining. Now, we now have some public hearings. I'm going to open the first public hearing at this time. Public hearing on the fiscal year 22 budget. Is there any comments from the public? Hearing none, have we received any written comments? Mr. Lewis?
No, we have not.
Okay, can you give us a brief 30-second synopsis of what we are approving?
Yep, so every year we have to approve our budget, and then it is put in the paper and then board action to approve. This is our budget for next year. It has our actual dollars last year, what we're gonna do this year and then next year. And you can tell it keeps our tax rate at 18.97 per thousand, as it was last year too. And this includes the bond.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, is there a motion to close this hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Stevens, seconded by Mr. Elfon, to close this hearing at 6:42 p.m. Now at 6:42 p.m., I am going to open a public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 20 budget amendment.
But can we pass the first one? Open here and then pass it.
We'll go back and we'll pass the first one at a time to pass the budget. Is there a motion there?
Move to approve both 2022 Board Committee with this budget.
Is there a second? Okay, moved by Mr. Pritchard, seconded by Dr. Nystrom to approve the proposed budget for the fiscal year 22. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passed unanimously. Now we'll do the public hearing at 6:43 for the fiscal year 20 budget amendment. The public hearing is open. First, are there any comments from the public? Seeing and hearing none, are there any written comments that have been received by the administration?
No comments.
Okay, can you give us a synopsis?
So this is one of those annual things that we do every year. We adjust our budget for unforeseen expenses when we did the budget last year for this current year. Estimate that instructional costs are going to increase as they normally do, and then our food costs are going to go up as well during COVID, so mostly our supplies. So this is a pretty normal standard thing. If we want to do it, we would just get a check on our audit. So this is pretty normal.
I believe every year I've been on the board, we've had to make this adjustment to reduce enough prediction. 12 months ago. Questions, concerns from board members? Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment at this public hearing, 6:44. Okay, moved by Ms. Stevens, seconded by Dr. Nyson to close this public hearing. And now we'll have a motion for the passage of the amended budget.
Move to accept the FY21 budget amendment.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Stevens, seconded by Mr. Elfin to approve the amended budget for fiscal year 2021. Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we're going to do the next public hearing, starting at 6:45, is on the expenditure from flexible account resolution 2021. Do we hear any comments from the public? Have we received any written comments?
No comments.
Okay, we don't have anything on the comments on the. And either.
Nope.
Okay, do we have a brief explanation?
So what this resolution does, we've done this in the past years with preschool. It gives us, it allows us to take money that's left over in those categorical funds that we don't spend and put into general dollars, so we can use that in the general fund. In the past 3 years, we've done it for class size reduction in the elementary buildings. So this would help offset our increased costs due to COVID and helps out the general fund.
Okay, and.
Up to 120.
Okay, when we have in the budget.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Questions, concerns, board members? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close this hearing at 2:47.
I'd move to close.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Alphen and seconded there by Dr. Nystrom to adjourn the public hearing for the approval of flexibility account at 6:47. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Okay, now I entertain a motion to approve the expenditure for the flexibility account board resolution.
Move to approve the expenditure from the flexibility account.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Pritchard, seconded by Dr. Nystrom to approve the expenditure for flexibility account board resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Next, we have the resolution of authorization and issue of a note for not to exceed $23 million. And Mr. Lewis? you got-
Yeah. So we recently passed our bond, the community did, for 23 million. Woohoo. So now it's time to levy for those dollars. So this allows us to pre-levy on our current tax rate to get us to the 4.05 to help pay for this. So this will be on our next year's budget. Once we have the formal bond paperwork, then we'll have the schedule set. But this helps us until we get that ready. We're going to start selling them here soon. So
Questions, concerns, board members?
By schedule, you mean funding and payment schedule? Or
yeah. There's papers to start the process below. So.
Hearing no further discussion, is there a motion to approve?
I move to take up the pre-levy resolution for the general obligation for one.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
So I think Jeremy got it.
Okay, yeah.
You have to do a roll call on that one.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. It's been moved by Mr. Stevens, seconded by Mr. Pritchard to approve the pre-levy resolution for the Boone Community School District on general obligation bond 2021.
Alphon,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Nystrom,
Yes.
Teben,
Yeah.
Melhouse.
Yes.
Great.
The motion passes unanimously. Next, Mr. Cooper, we have on the agenda the farmland rent agreement.
Correct. So we have in your documents a rent agreement to allow a portion of the property that we purchased to be farmed during this time. We don't have a purpose for that southern portion of our property at this time and see no reason not to allow the farmers that have been farming it to continue to do so. So we've met with them and come to a cash rent agreement that was in your documentation, and I would recommend approval.
This is actually for all the property that we bought.
For this fall.
For this fall, yeah,
Because,
right.
we're not gonna be turning
We aren't gonna
it
touch-
until
yeah.
October, November.
Mhm.
And it's either farm it or we control it, so therefore, this was negotiated with, Bush Family Farmers for the previous owners for many years.
Correct.
Any questions?
Was that a fair rate? I guess I don't know.
That's
much
the
about
average
that.
rate. That's
Yep.
the growing
It's a
rate.
fair rate. I talked to a couple different experts. And they thought that was a reasonable effort. They'll be in soybeans this year.
Mhm.
With a hope to get the beans out by early October. So we can start moving dirt by late October, November, which is very reasonable. Diesel, we're going in for 2 or 3 months. Any questions? Okay, I will entertain a Motion now for the land rent agreement between Bush and EMC.
I move to approve the farmland cash rental agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Pritchard, seconded by Mr. Alphonse to approve the farmland rent agreement with the Bush family for the 2021 year sowing season. There no further discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Next, we have a brief presentation from our workman's comp insurance officials.
Yes, so what,
Wherever you want to go.
you can be, well, if
Yeah,
you
you can go in
can
the
be
front there.
in the front so that the public that's being streamed in gets to see you, and then I guess I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself. So go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you for having us. My name is Sean Miner. I'm with SFM Mutual Insurance. We're your workers' compensation carrier as of last July. So we're coming up on our first renewal with the school district. This is Jason Clausen. He's with our loss prevention department. He's been working with Mitch and others within the district since we started working with you just about a year ago. So what I'd like to talk to you today about is start off by thanking you very much for placing your workers' compensation with SFM Insurance. Talk a little bit about the track record of where things have been loss-wise, and then also talk to you about some of the initiatives that the school district has taken to help control those costs going forward, and to give special thanks to those who really helped out a lot. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about your experience mod factor. I don't know if you guys have gotten into this level of detail in the past. I'll try to be as brief as possible, but your experience mod factor is the one part of your overall workers' compensation premium that you can best control. It is just that. It's based on your experience and how Boone Community Schools compares to other schools of similar size. And so if you look at it in terms of the school district, it's kind of like a report card. It's like a grade. So a 1 means you're absolutely average in terms of experience, not in terms of the school district, but in terms of your loss experience. It would mean you're absolutely average with other similar school districts. Higher than a 1 means you're paying more in premium as a result of having worse than average experience compared to like school districts. Below 1 means you're doing better. So, and I point this out because once again, it's the one factor of your overall workers' compensation premium that the school district has the most control over. So in its simplest form, the way your premiums are calculated year in and year out are based on your state rate, your payroll, and then that experience mod that I was talking about. So your state rate is based on how all school districts do, and go up and down depending on the experience of all school districts. So for instance, this year, your professional school code is going up 13%, and that's not anything to do with Boone specifically. It's how all schools in the state of Iowa have performed historically. Your payroll is what it is. Looks like we've got about a 3.4% increase for the upcoming school year is my understanding. And then your experience mod. Your experience mod, to be clear, is not based on how you've done over the last year. It's actually based on how you did the 3 previous years. And all it's doing is saying, compared to where we would expect you to be, how you performed. The experience mod is not anything SFM or EMC or any other carrier calculates. It's done by an independent data collection organization called the NCCI out of Florida. So those are the factors that go into it. The next slide will show you how we're doing this year compared to the upcoming year. So your current experience mod in the year that's going to renew in July, the expiring is a 101. So you're paying 1% more just on the experience mod piece of it. The upcoming year, starting in July, is going up to a 153. And so last year in July, EMC decided not to offer renewal on the workers' compensation. The alternative was to go into the assigned risk plan. At that point, that 153 is being driven primarily by your 2019 year prior to when you were with SFM, your last year with EMC. And so I'm going to let Jason talk a little bit about some of the strategies that we put in place to help control that going forward. To give you some sort of overall idea, over the last 5 years, the school district has averaged over $250,000 in losses. And Jason will talk to you about some of the success we've had this year. And we're not going to take credit for it. It's really what Mitch and the folks within the school district have really done. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason Clausen.
So thank you to the board and the administration for allowing us to come in and present. I've only got 62 more slides to go to cover all of this. Actually,
Four.
Mitch made me whittle it down to 10. I want to give the board especially some context, because I'm kind of the bringer of good news when you talk about, an experience mod that's rising. I mean, instantly the connotation is bad things. We got some great things to say. When I first met with Mitch last spring and Julie this summer, I put together some rudimentary loss analysis. And here's your context. Lifting and materials handling in a 5-year period from 15 to 20 cost the school almost $500,000. Slips, trips, and falls about another, close to $200,000. A lot of money, was being lost. Special education and contact with students, a lost category, accounted for 50. And then you go back to slips, trips, and falls again, and there were 40 just in that time frame. And Mitch, if you'd advance that, I want to take a look at this year. Here comes the good news, and this isn't by accident. When we go back to that, you do some simple math and start dividing up what yearly lost dollars look like. This year, for efforts that Boone School District has made, you've only had 12 claims. That's a big deal. Only 11,699 lost dollars thus far. Here's a bigger deal. You've not incurred any lost time. And we won't get into the minutia, but Sean will tell you, and was kind of alluding to that. When you're putting together your experience mod, lost time, weighs really heavy on that. If you jump to the next one, that'd be fantastic. Anybody have any questions? Causes of injury, some points that I want to make here. We were taking, we took a look at this year's losses, and we put them in these buckets again. You kind of see that lifting, strains, and sprains in the middle that, were some of the lost dollars. Here's where, one of my jobs as your business partner is to look to the future a little bit and give resources to Mitch and Julie to offset those. And, in our bucket, we call it fellow or patient. That's contact with a student. Most often, it's associated with special education. I want to give some shout outs to why you're here at reduced losses and reduced dollars. And if you want to add to those, please jump in with me. Julie has been a big advocate of training. And one that she's helped me greatly with is de-escalation team training. It's something that we like to infuse into special education. Claims management is a really big deal. Last spring, Mitch committed to doing several things, to help manage claims. Julie came on board and jumped right in there and said, hey, we have some high expectations of how we're going to take care of injured employees at the school district. 0 days to report. That means when an injury occurs at the school district, it's getting to the administration right away. It's getting it into SFM that helps us better manage it. Promoting return to work. So if somebody is injured on the job, the school district is doing a great job of getting them back in, finding light duty, reducing the cost of those claims. Mitch, a couple of the other things, pre-employment physicals.
Yep, and we redid all the job descriptions. And
so what I'm here to say is I kind of draw this to a conclusion. We are on that 10th, we're at the end of the show here. Is one, I want to take any questions if people have them, but also from SFM to Boone Community School District, pass the congratulations along. There's been a lot of effort that's gone into making this reduction. You keep doing this year after year, you're going to see that experience mod come down, premiums come down, and that's a wonderful thing for everybody in the district. Does anybody have questions for Sean or I before we depart?
You answered my question about what revenue is coming down.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
We have been, been on board for a year now. I'm also paying for the year. So. We had been at a point where we had been very low. Then we had a couple really bad years. Back in 18 and 19, college skyrocketed. So, Julie and Mitch did a great job making the need improvements that we need back under control. Very proud of what the two of them have done.
I just want to be able to also say that it takes the team. It's not just things that we talked about from Mitch and I's perspective. It took all of our administrative team. I believe, Jason, you were there when we had our administrative and managers all present when we went through expectations. And it was what they have done, working with our staff, helping our staff understand what is expected. I just want to make sure that they get credit for the hard work that they've done, because that doesn't happen all by itself. So I just want to make sure that you recognize that that's something that our administrative team took to heart when we had that beginning of the year conversation, and the results are in front of you now. So.
Very much.
For having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This update.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to the college and career transition counselor proposal.
Yes, so I believe you all may have seen the press release, as well as some of the conversation around our new career counselor position that we're able to coordinate with both Ogden and DMAC. You have the 28E agreement in your documents for that particular position. And so what we need to be able to do is just approve that collaborative effort so we can have a career counselor to address some of the needs that we weren't able to do without this position. Super excited about it, and the hard work that did go into putting this together. I know Chris and Jill put a lot of time and energy into getting the necessary paperwork in place and ensuring that this application went through DMAC. And so we just are excited about the possibilities and would encourage approval of this agreement.
Questions, board members? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve these two majors? Entertain one proposal.
I move to accept the 2080 agreement and the DMAC career counselor.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Stevens, second by Dr. Blackstone to approve the 28E agreement between Boone and Ogden, as well as the DMAC career transition counselor proposal as presented. Any further questions? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is financial service agreement, 5%. Superintendent
Not here yet.
Drew.
Okay, so
You want me to go?
yeah, so this is actually related to the previous resolution with regard to utilizing Piper Sandler for the financial services to go through all the paperwork that we will be going through with this, the sales of the bonds. And I know that Matt Gillespie was going to join us momentarily, but in the meantime, I'll let Mitch go ahead and start.
He's just finishing up another board meeting. So this is just a financial agreement that we would use them for the sale. This is a company that 99.5% of the schools in Iowa use, and we've used them in the past. So we recommend approval of this service agreement.
Is Any further discussion? I would like to table this issue and come back with Mr. Leslie is able to come on more. I'm going to take presidential privilege and move on down until we get down. I'd like to move on down to the Ayers Cooney engagement letter.
They are.
Related, so let's move down to the Ayers Cooney.
He's going to email me when he's on.
Okay. Superintendent Pickle, you want to explain that, Mr. Lewis?
Sure. This is simply an engagement agreement to utilize Allers and Cooney as our attorneys through this process. They are the entity that we utilize as our attorneys for other items, and so I would recommend that we use them for as our bond counsel.
Is there motion?
Move to approve Ayers County engagement letter for bond counsel.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Pritchard, seconded by Dr. Nystrom to approve the engagement letter bond disclosure council with, I'm sorry, the Ayers County contract. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The motion passes. Next, we're going to move on down to the DEA and Boone Community School District negotiated agreement.
Yes, so we have an agreement that the Boone Educators Association and Boone Community School District reached agreement upon 3 items during negotiations. One, are you finding it?
Yeah.
Okay. One would be the
Changing personal and family.
leave. Okay, go ahead.
Changing personal and family just to straight personal family illness leave. So that is a change for this year for them. We've added in, where is it?
Under personal leave, whatever that is.
Personal leave. Unused personal leave will be paid out at 85 days for a maximum of 2 days and $85 per day for maximum of 2 days paid out. Therefore, the employee will only carry over the maximum of 2 days allowed. That's not paid over. That's not paid out or rid of on the previous policy. And then what's the other one? Remember?
The 2.25%.
Oh, and then the whole package we settled at 2.25, which increased our starting base salary at $35,169.
Say that the HCA has.
Yes.
Yep.
It's been ratified.
And contracts are packaged up and ready to be delivered.
Pending your approval.
Pending approval. 285.
285.
Yep.
Any further discussion on this? There is no further discussion. I'll entertain a motion to approve the DEA school district contract for 2021-2022.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Dr. Max, seconded by Ms. Stephen to approve the DEA contract with the school district for 2021-2022 school year as presented by Mr. Lewis.
All right, Matt is on. Dr. Milhouse.
Okay.
Matt, you can.
Let me get this motion.
Oh.
Any
Jump
further
in ahead.
discussion? Otherwise, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to back up, and now that we have Mr. Gillespie with Pepper Sandler, we're going back to agenda item 3.08. And Matt, are you there?
Yep, I am. If you can hear me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I apologize for being late. I'm participating on a Charles City School Board meeting as well, and they're presenting a beautiful Leader in Me presentation right now. So I've skipped that, and I'm coming to you, and I'll go back to them here in just a moment. I don't know who has control. Can someone let me have control of the screen for just a moment? I think there's one thing that I'd want to share with you guys, and then the other things are probably fairly self-explanatory.
Yep, hold on a second.
Okay, if you can't, that's not a big deal. I can.
The way I'm connected, I guess we'll find out. Go ahead and try it.
Yep, that looks like that's going to work there. So just a second. Okay, so you can see this screen where my cursor is circling, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the items on your agenda for tonight is to approve the pre-levy resolution. There are a couple engagement letters, those are pretty straightforward and basic. I think probably you have one from Allers and Cooney, who's your bond attorney. There's one from Piper, the company I work for. And then there's a dissemination agent addendum, which is just adding the new issue to what we already file for your mandatory disclosure. So if you guys have questions about those things, you can ask when I get finished here. But the pre-levy resolution is something somewhat unique that is not necessarily straightforward. But because your bonds are not going to be sold until later this summer, but yet you still need to levy taxes to make the payment that will be scheduled for those bonds during fiscal year 22, the school board has to implement what's called a pre-levy resolution. So it basically is forcing the tax levy into your fiscal year 22 budget, even though the bonds have not been sold yet. And then when we do sell the bonds later this summer, we will have that amount that you pass as the pre-levy resolution be a not to exceed amount. So we can't exceed it in fiscal year 22, which of course is $4.05. So we can't exceed it anyway. But what you see on this page is the calculation of that amount that is in the resolution for tonight. So we use your current taxable valuation, and the current taxable valuation is the January of 2020 value. We're always a year behind, remember. So that's 623.9 million. And then if you were to levy $4.05, which is what you are going to levy, that's the maximum general obligation bond levy allowed, that would be $2,526,838. And yet you already have some bonds outstanding, and that payment is $1,620,160. So the balance, or the maximum amount that you are going to add to your existing debt for fiscal year 22 is $906,677. That's what the pre-levy is. And then again, this summer, when we sell the bonds, we will make sure that this first year's payment does not exceed that $906,000. So if this was really happening, and of course we don't know what interest rates are going to be this summer, they're still extremely low, averaging over this 20 period still less than 2%. But if this was the exact result, just as an example, you can see that this number is actually about $12,000, or excuse me, $9,000 less. So we would push another $5,000 increment of principal into this first maturity and take it out of this final maturity. So that means you'd save 19 years of interest on that one $5,000 portion, because the bonds are issued in $5,000 increments. And by doing that, that would then push this first year's payment closer to the $906,000 without going over it. So that will happen on the day of the bond sale once we know what the real interest rates are. And of course, if interest rates happen to be higher, which they could be, the coupon could be higher, and I'll explain that more on the day of the bond sale, we would have to take some principal out of this maturity and pepper it down along these other maturities. So that's what the pre-levy resolution that you have on your agenda is for. That's to implement and make sure that the tax levy for fiscal year 22 is indeed $4.05. We'll sell the bonds later this summer, and then that will put in place the dollar amount of your levies over the next 20 years. And of course, the tax levy rate for those other 19 years will be dependent on what the taxable valuation is in each of those future years. So any questions about what the pre-levy is, or more generically, what the engagement agreements that you have on your agenda for tonight are?
Board members, any questions for Matt? Anything related to bonding here? Pre-resolutions we have to talk about? and routine for bonding. So. Okay, thank you very much, Matt, for joining us tonight.
Yep, I will go back to Charles City. If you do come up with questions that you think of after the meeting, pass those along to Mitch, and Mitch can find me wherever I'm at, and we can answer any questions you have as we lead up to the launch.
I think they want you here for those 3 action items. Do you have a few minutes?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Let's go to financial service agreement with Piper. Questions, concerns about that? Board members? Okay. Is there a motion to approve financial service agreement with Piper Salmon?
I would move to approve the financial service agreement with Piper Salmon.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, moved by Mr. Alphen, seconded by Mr. Pritchard, to approve the financial service agreement with Piper Salmon. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Next is the dissemination agreement with Piper Salmon. Questions, concerns about this and how? Any questions from Matt? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve dissemination agreement? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Dr. Nyson, seconded by Mr. Stephen to approve the dissemination agreement with Piper Salmon. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is electronic bidding procedure.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, we've done this in the past. This is just a routine item to approve us doing it.
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, the district, except for the exception of a few of your debt issuances in the last 5 or 6 years that have been what's called a private placement, the district for literally the last 20 years has been using this same electronic bidding site, which basically every city, county, and school in the state of Iowa, for the most part, has used. And it's sort of like eBay, or you can think of it kind of like eBay. It's not quite like that if you've ever actually used eBay. People can't see your bid and then continue to bid higher or lower. They're just bidding the best bid they possibly can, not knowing it. So it's a blind bid, which is what we want it to be. They need to give us the best bid possible. But that system is just a means of accepting bids electronically.
Okay, any further questions, board members? Otherwise, I'll entertain the motion.
Move to approve electronic bidding procedures as presented.
For a second. Okay, it's moved by Mr. Pritchard, seconded by Dr. Nystrom to approve the electronic bidding process as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Matt. Enjoy your other meeting tonight.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, next on our list is approval of the audit. Ms. Schaefer?
Yes, so we had 4 firms come forward with bids for being our auditor, and do you remember which one Anderson is?
B.
B came in with the lowest bid. It also happens to be the firm that has employees on staff that have been former SBOs. They have a lot of experience with school finance in particular, so that would be our preference anyway. And it's nice that they came in as a low bid as happenstance. So our recommendation is to move forward with approval of firm B.
Anderson,
Whatever that whole thing is. Anderson and
Anderson, Larkin and Company.
Thank you.
And I believe you guys sent out some records, correct? Ready for all the board members.
An email. We sent the email.
Yep. And I put them up there too.
Yeah.
Okay. Central sources from southeast Iowa, from southeast Iowa. Got good positive feedback and reports that I saw and then on these look good for reference. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the Litton Anderson Larkin and Company for the audit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Ms. Stevens, seconded by Dr. Nyström to approve the Anderson and Larkin proposal for the audit administrator. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next up is the Chromebook bid.
So you should have in your documents the Chromebook bids that were presented to you. We are recommending that the approval of Blue Ally in the bid amount of $116,340. That would be Bog's recommendation as well.
It's the cheapest bid.
Any questions, discussion? Dr. Nyström?
Yeah, we talked about utilization of before.
We haven't used them before, so they've just started working with schools across the state, and everybody has good luck with them. So Bog is very pleased with them so far. Yep.
Any further questions? Okay, I will therefore entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve the bid from Blue Alley for Chromebook.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Pritchard, secondary by Mr. Elkins to approve the Blue Alley bid in the amount of $116,340. There's no further discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Unanimously. Next, approval of bus bids.
So you can see in the documents that we had two entities put in bids for the bus that we had requested bids for, Thomas and Hoagland. Hoagland would be the one that came in at $106,000. That would be our preference. I know in previous experience, speaking with bus drivers, they like the body of the Hoagland buses better because they don't bounce around as much in the winter, and they're just a heavier vehicle. But I know that Mike also preferred the Hoagland's bid to Thomas's. We also applied for an Iowa DOT Volkswagen rebate on this purchase in the amount of $31,800. Mitch can speak to what that rebate really looked like and what that was about, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that we did apply for that rebate.
We did apply for it year before last, and we received $24,900 back on our bus. So this would be July 1 purchase.
July 1 purchase.
Yep.
Are we needing a bus, or what's the, I guess?
So it would be important to continue to buy buses on a scheduled basis. So this is in the schedule.
We do every other two.
This last year, we did not purchase a school bus. Instead, purchased, I believe, a few vans. And so this is just part of our transportation budget forecasting that we've done. And
There's a rotating schedule
Okay.
that we do that Mitch and Mike Candy have. As far as it's like we buy buses for 3 years and we buy a couple vans or cars. And a lot of this comes out double times, if I remember.
Yep.
Right.
it does.
So this is just on time. School buses, I can't remember the exact year, but there's only so many years they can run.
They get pretty battered with the salt and
Well,
Price out for
and it's
reserve.
good to have a schedule like this, so you don't have all of your buses going down at one time. There are school districts that lease their buses sometimes because they can't afford to purchase all of them at the same time. So this provides the district the possibility of other options if you have a schedule like this. If something were to arise that wouldn't allow you to do this, you aren't looking at a whole fleet of buses all at once. So that's another reason why you do this.
Any further questions? Is there a motion?
Move to accept the whole adoption.
Or a second? Okay, moved by Mr. Stevens, seconded by Mr. Matcham to approve the bid for Hawthorne bus. Hawthorne.
Tomato, tomato. I think.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Student catastrophic insurance renewal.
So this is something that we need to do every year. We need to carry some catastrophic insurance policy for students while they're attending. This is the same company that we've had in the past. There's no increase in policy premium from the previous year, so we'd recommend approval of the continuation of this policy for 21-22 school year.
Is there any discussion? Is there a motion on this subject?
I would move to approve the renewal of the student catastrophic insurance policy for the 2021-2022.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Alphat and seconded by Mr. Pritchard to approve the student catastrophic insurance policy for 2021-22. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next is the resolution adopting multi-jurisdictional hazardous mitigation plan. It's a mouthful. Mrs. Strickland, can you put that in
Yes.
simple terms?
So the county is required to put together a mitigation plan that encompasses multitude of organizations that would cooperate in the event of some major hazard. And so this is simply a resolution stating that we will collaborate with those entities and in that planning. So I would just recommend approval of adopting the resolution.
Questions? Hearing none, is there a motion over here? Is there a second? Okay. It's been moved by Mr. Stevens, seconded by Dr. Matcham to approve the multi-jurisdictional hazardous mitigation plan 2021. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the AEA purchase agreement. Ms. Teresa.
Yes, so this is something we do every year as well. We go into an agreement with the Heartland Area Education Agency and Martin Brothers to get reduced pricing for our nutrition department. So this is something, we also can purchase other supplies through AEA. So I would recommend approval as it saves us money utilizing that purchasing agreement.
Okay. Questions? Okay, now I entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the AA purchasing agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It is now moved and seconded to approve the ADA purchase agreement with Martin Brothers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. I think the board is getting tired of making motions on that.
We're getting closer, guys.
We got a handful left.
We need a big red button.
Okay, future building needs projects.
Yes, so just wanted to talk with the board a little bit about several of the projects that the district's been in need of, and as we look forward to the future, and I have a specific ask for tonight. So let me share with you some of the projects that have been on the docket that would need to be addressed in the near future. One would be redoing the gym with the floors, the bleachers, paint, new lighting. That needs to be done, as well as having HVAC in the gym. We do not have that currently. So that's been, I don't know how many years now that's kind of been on the plans to address.
We only have like another year or two on that gym floor, and then
Right.
we need to replace it.
So that's kind of been in the planning process anyway.
Yeah, it's almost done.
Yeah. So, so that would be one project. The other piece that we need to be thinking about is currently our HSAP program. We utilize a lease for the space that they use now at about $30,000 a year. And that lease will not come due at the end of this year, but the end of next year. So keep that in your mind when I talk about the next thing. When we pass the bond, at some point we will need to sell the land and the buildings that are on the land that allowed us to have a new building. That means Futures will need another location as well. So what I've been thinking about and wondering if we can move forward with trying to start some of the planning processes with this is if we were to move Futures and HSAP into Morton buildings on the weed patch site, what everyone calls the weed patch here. It is between 8th and 9th Street, has the 4 backstops on it. Everyone know what I'm talking about? It's not our practice field, but the actual, so if we were to move HSAP and Futures to that location and have a building for Futures built and space for HSAP, and then like a smaller gym, not necessarily a full size gym, but a smaller gym, so that our students who are attending Futures would have access to that. And there are other activities that our community could benefit from, another space that's maybe not full size gym, but would have that. And then also put a parking lot on that. We could have all of it in one space, and we would save that $30,000 every year by not having to pay for the lease for HSAP. And then take that project, combine it with our gym project. And that's what I'd like to be able to move forward on all of those things. And in order to do that, we would need to do some bids for architects, as well as what we're thinking as far as funding it would be sales tax dollars right now, but we haven't gone that far until I have your blessing to kind of start planning this process and get this rolling, so that when we come time to have to sell our property, we know what we're going to be doing with the students that attend Futures. And then when the lease comes due in another year, a little over a year, we would already have a place for them to go, versus thinking about it next year and not having enough time to actually have a place for them to go and being forced into a lease and not really having a choice. So that was what I wanted to have time to discuss. And then as far as action tonight, I just need your blessing to move forward with trying to get bids for architects for all of this, to see, you know, what would the costs be? What are we looking at? I am thinking we need to look for bids for architects versus just simply adding this to our current architect, because they have a large project on their plates right now. So I would want to go out to bid for that.
Would that serve as a bus stop? Since we're getting rid of.
So speaking of bus stops, so we do need to have a bus stop in that location. We also have the Casey's property that we own, so we need to decide what we're going to do with that as well. We could use that as our bus stop, or when we sell our property that Lincoln and Futures currently are on, whoever bought that, we could make that contingent on with the 28E agreement that we'd be allowed to use that as a bus stop. But that is something we absolutely cannot let that area go as a bus stop. We have to have a bus stop there. So it could be one of those two things.
Yeah, we have the bus stop at Eastern Star or by the week back, either one.
Well, I'm thinking just no Eastern Star or like if we didn't sell the land that we have, the old Casey's building could be a bus stop
Across the street there.
across the street from Futures. It's so close to here. I don't know that it's going to
There's
need to
not
be a bus
parking on the
stop
south side of the
necessarily.
weed patch. I don't know if that makes a difference for space to get a bus in there.
Yeah. Yeah, but that one, I don't think that would be too bad.
They'd have to probably cross
They
the
cross
property
across the
and-
property.
or something.
You can park on the north side, I think, on that weed patch. I just,
But I think mostly what we need for the area of the weed patch would be more a parking lot, because currently that's what we use the old Casey's spot for, is parking for our students that are at Futures. So I think the parking lot's more important than the bus stop, but it doesn't mean we can't use it as a bus stop. It just
Yeah.
means,
But most of you're only, people only have a couple more blocks than one of them.
Yeah.
As opposed to. Yeah, well, that's just it.
So this would be a permanent installation then for the future.
yeah, so it'd be an actual building. Yeah, but I'm thinking more Morton building than like what we just bonded for. So,
Brick and mortar.
yeah,
Basically, tonight, you need our blessing.
to explore this as a
Contact couple
possibility.
architectural firms
Mhm.
to get a bid and give some ideas as far as what the cost of this concept would be. So we can see if we have enough bonding money and our 1% sales tax money, which is not an increase in anyone taxes, because that's just the money we get from the state sales tax.
Mhm.
We'll just be bonding against the future of it, which right now it's helping to pay off a middle school and high school. They're going to get down on some of that. We have perhaps that money available to use.
But we can't really make informed decisions until we have that information. So
Correct.
that's what I'm looking for, is permission to move forward with that exploration of it. Not, you obviously would be approving all the other steps along the way if that's the direction we wanted to go, but I just need to be able to explore that possibility.
Yes, the way to do the board would be in motion. We authorize her to go ahead. Anyone not to head on this one, because it's non-official. And we're not paying money or anything. It's just asking our employees to go bring it back on. I don't care if it's, but you have a preference as far as what to do this.
I would love to have your public blessing to move forward. Yeah.
I move to allow the village to before you first into this project. Is that covered?
There's a second.
second.
Okay, it's a move by Stephen and second by Dr. Maxson by Hare. To authorize Secretary Treepa to proceed with further exploration and bring it back to progress for the next month.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Summer youth internship pilot project.
So you may have also seen this press release. It's very nice to have such positive press releases. Dr. Janes did a beautiful job of writing this grant for us, and we've attained a grant now to participate in the Summer Youth Internship Pilot Project. But in order to do so, we need to have the memorandum of understanding approved by the board. So that's what this is the memorandum of understanding regarding this particular agreement with Iowa Workforce Development. So I'd recommend approval.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the summer youth internship pilot program MOU.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It has been moved by Mr. Pritchard, seconded by Mr. Alphen. Split second. to approve the memorandum of understanding for the summer youth internship pilot project. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. I feel like I'm on Jeopardy. I just need to get.
I have to say, it is nice to see Boone and Elizabeth's school going to be benefit from this program.
Yes.
So thank you.
This was great, very positive press for you. Okay, next is high school registration handbook update.
Who is going first for that? Is that teachers or is that Chris? Okay.
Hi, good evening. I'm Christina Greenfield, and I am the Boone High School Excel teacher. Thank you for your couple minutes of time in going over some new language that we are proposing for the high school course handbook. I also have Nate Myers here, who's the head of the math department, and I'll have him explain what our test out program is and what our goals are for this new language in the course handbook for students.
All right, so I'm Nathan Myers. I'm the head of the math department in the high school. Christina and I in the math department have been working on this for a little while now. And the whole purpose of having a test out process in math is to allow students the opportunity to access more advanced math courses. A lot of students who want to take Calculus 2, Calculus 3 are not able to right now with the current way that we have things running without doubling up. And doubling up really takes away some of their flexibility for elective courses, which you can see on the fourth bullet point there in the purposes. It also allows us to place student in appropriate math courses. So in my experience, while teaching algebra, especially those students that come from Trinity and some of those other private schools really do have some of the algebra background, and they seem to get really bored with the content right away. And so this allows them to show that they learned it and then gain the credit that they rightfully deserve. And it's not just limited to those students, it's open to all students. And then ensure students are proficient in the standards and foundational math courses before advancing. So basically it just allows kids to further advance their math skills with the intention of taking those higher level math courses, which we don't always get the students to in our current program.
Right, so just, Bitch, could I project the test out procedures, or could you project this for us?
You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, so give me just one moment, please.
There you go.
Are you able to see him now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I can walk you through, well, both Nate and I can walk you through kind of how a test out program would work and how this option would look like. So for example, the first step would be that students fill out an application form before they leave for summer break. And for students who already have knowledge of Algebra 1 or geometry, this would probably be more for Algebra 1 though, they would have the option of taking a pretest before the end of the school year that would cover the standards of the Algebra 1 course, and then they would get feedback on whether or not they are proficient on those standards or if they need to work a little bit more on those standards. If they're proficient on the standards for the Algebra 1 course, they would earn a test out credit, and it would go as a TO on their transcript, and they would earn 2 high school credits, but the grade would not be factored into the GPA. If they still had some work to do, then a math teacher and I and the student would put together an action plan of how to independently study those standards over the summer. And when they're ready, they would take a second test, a post-test, over the standards of Algebra 1 again, or geometry, if that's what they're testing out of. And they would have a second chance to show their proficiency on those standards. Again, if they were proficient on the standards that the math department feels like is the bar of they were ready to be successful for the next course, then they would get test out credit and they'd be able to move on to the next course in their math pathway. If They still needed just maybe 1 or 2. There would be kind of a gray area left to the math department's discretion that a student could self-study that and then perhaps have another chance before the first week of classes to show proficiency on that standard. If a student takes the post-test and it really looks like they just are not very proficient in the standards, they didn't meet the expectation of the math department, then they would simply be placed in that regular course, Algebra 1 or Geometry, and it would not be on their transcript. So they wouldn't be hurt for taking this option or trying it. There's some other details on this document. So for example, we want to be very clear with students that the purpose of the test out is to advanced math courses and not to get them done as soon as possible. We still expect students to take math courses for at least 6 credits, or in my mind, preferably, it doesn't fit in every case, but preferably all 4 years. And that there's some prerequisite requirements that students would have to earn at least a B in their math class that they take before testing out. Testing out would not be used for a credit recovery option. It would be to accelerate and advance their math study. And this would be largely an independent study. Students would be provided with resources. However, they would be notified that math teachers will be on vacation, will be spending time with family over the summer, and that their time to help and answer questions will be limited, and that this is very much a self-independent study for students. And Nathan, I'll kind of turn it over to you.
Yeah, so the rest of the procedures essentially just lay out, like, we have an application date that they need to have it filled out, which just includes their name, what class they're trying to test out of, and other things along those lines. The students are encouraged definitely to take the pre-test to get an understanding of what material they're expected to understand, but they can also just alternatively just waive the pre-test and take the post-test by July 30th, which allows us to grade it and get information to the counselors about what classes they need to be in. If a student completes a pre-test, they'll be given feedback. The intention of the feedback is to give students an idea of what standards they essentially passed and what standards they still need to work on. The pre and post test, we do want them to take that in person at the high school with a proctor, and they must be taken on different days. And then as long as they take the post test before July 30th, we should be able to get it graded. And I think we have contact information for who to contact about setting up those times.
Right, and so this is a lot of information to digest. So I made a flow chart. I love flow charts on the second page of the document that kind of goes through the process where they submit an application form, complete a pre-test. However, they could waive that if they would like, if they don't have any prior knowledge of Algebra 1 or Geometry, depending on the course that they choose to test out of. And then it goes through the options. Again, if they pass out in the spring, they earn test out credit. They can go ahead and move on to the next course in their math pathway. If they didn't pass, then that leads them into an independent self-study where they can take a post-test by July 30th. So the counselors will have that information in order to make schedule changes in plenty of time for the school year to begin. And then depending on how well a student scores on that post-test, they will either earn test out credit or they'll be placed in the course that they attempted to test out of but weren't necessarily successful at that time. So this has gone through quite a bit of a process with a lot of people looking at this plan. We also have some information for the board that we've attached that lists everyone who's kind of given input. We've been through many revisions, and we've had input from Jill Janes, as well as Chris Byam, Drake Bailey, the high school guidance counselors, the entire math department. Annie Carpenter from the AEA has taken a look at this quite a bit and helped us with finding resources to share with students. And some are asynchronous online sources, which I think will be really helpful. And this is actually an idea that we kind of drummed up last year after we had some students in Algebra 1 who came to our school after being in a private school and had algebra knowledge, but didn't necessarily have an opportunity to share that with them or earn that high school credit. And so they had Algebra 1 again. And we saw that they definitely needed accelerated and differentiation at that point. And we kind of started brainstorming this. And then, like so many stories end, COVID happened. And we decided that that was probably the best thing to do the next year. Honestly, I think we just all got busy with the winter months. But when we started doing registration again this spring, several students started asking again about how they could accelerate their math pathway if they hadn't accelerated in their 8th grade year, due to a variety of reasons, because they had gone to a private school setting and there wasn't a teacher endorsed in algebra. This year we had a question about a student coming in who is homeschooled. And then we have students who weren't necessarily identified for acceleration in middle school, but have the drive and the will to accelerate their math courses at this point. And so we thought this might be a good option for those students.
So do we still offer algebra in 8th grade?
I'm sorry, I was having a hard time hearing that question.
Yes, we are.
The question to Mr. Kelly is we're still offering algebra in 8th grade. He said yes.
Yes, this year we are. I think due to some curriculum changes, there were some students who might have been interested in accelerating, but weren't identified as a good fit to accelerate last year. And so our 9th graders, we do have a couple students who might be interested in trying to do this self-study.
Other questions from board members? Hearing no further discussion or question, is there a motion to approve the modification? Okay, is there a second? Okay, moved by Dr. Nice and seconded by Mr. Stevens to approve the high school registration book update map. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Amen. Now, high school prom and graduation update. Stripa and Brian, you hear somebody?
Yes, Mr. Byams prepared to share with you some of the information that you would ask for previously and to continue with the recommendation after he's worked with public health.
You asked how many students that, or how many guests that we would have from out of district. We surveyed our students. We had 179 students that responded. 70 of them said that they would bring an out-of-town guest. Typically, on average, we have about 300 guests at prom. I do want to give you some other aspects of things. We've had ADM, Bondurant, Ballard, DCG, Gilbert, and North Polk have all said that they are opening it up for everybody to come, allowing guests and not limiting them. One of the things I also wanted to share, we have, and I can't give you all the information because it's a surprise. We're planning a surprise for our students that I think will also help with the mitigation strategy. We will, in a 2-hour span, we'll be dividing the gym in half, basically, and using another part of the facility that will allow us to kind of separate our students and our guests. I can't tell you exactly what that is, but that's something that we're in the works of planning right now. That will help get a little bit of distance. Once again, we have these mitigation strategies that we have planned. So, mask required. We will be hosting in the gym. We'll put our large purification systems that we have in our large areas. We'll have multiple of those. We'll make sure that we're properly ventilating the gym early on. That's something that we typically do anyway. Drawing in outside air because it gets really hot in there. So that's something that we'll be looking at. We'll be doing the temperature checks at the door. We'll be attempting to social distance as much as possible throughout the dance. We'll have staggered breaks built in, rotating breaks scheduled for all. The surprise activity that I told you guys about. We'll be pre-selling our tickets, pre-packaged food, hand sanitizer available. We'll also be making sure that we have vigilant chaperones and making sure that we try to keep more space. I know that Miss Lumley has planned already to expand out. Usually we have it kind of in the tight quarters. We're planning on using the whole gym in general. And then one of the things that we're gonna have one reminder, one strike, and you're out. We're not gonna play around with the mask. That's something that we just it's not an option. In terms of Grand March, the parents from the court we want to be able to allow. The students, in terms of the seniors, we would give one ticket to in order to be there. Before I had told you 2 tickets. 2 tickets with about 150 seniors. That's just way too many. That we have a capacity slightly over 400, and so we're trying to minimize the Grand March. It'll be live on Boone TV, and so people can still see it. And then we're working on a photographer to be able to give a picture to our students or so that they have a keepsake there. I would honestly recommend that we allow guests. I think there's other examples. Bondurant just went this weekend. Gilbert went this weekend also, and didn't really have any problems with any of the mitigation strategies that they put in place. I think our students have continued to prove that they can handle it. We've opened up athletic events and had some large events. Mr. Peter also talked about TSA, state TSA. I truly feel like we can put these mitigation strategies and be successful with these mitigation strategies. I would recommend that we have our prom with our guests. Thank you very much for coming to answer those questions we had last month. That's why this was on the agenda tonight. Was we had questions last month we wanted answers. I appreciate it all. Speaking from public health standpoint, I contacted our head public health nurse, and she keeps track of the data more than I do. And she felt no concerns about proceeding as Ms. Vine has suggested. Well, the only caveat is we don't want to turn it into Michigan in the next 2 weeks. They don't have to reconsider, but hopefully we don't move to Michigan in the next 2 weeks and we'll be able to have this discussion. And we said 10%. That if we go above a community spread of 10%, then it's a postponement or a cancellation.
6. We're at 6.
So it has climbed over the last few days, but community one by right now about 5%. Been hovering around 4.5 and 5.2 for the last.
I think you guys have set a very good, consistent mitigation plan in place. If adults abide by it and set that an example, it means a lot. And I think your kids, didn't you say 94% of kids in the survey said they were really willing to wear masks, they wanted to have fun. Yeah. 70 kids who probably feel the same way in their school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, we've been having those conversations all year. We can have that conversation with somebody and ask them to leave if they're not going to follow with what we're asking them to do. But I think they want the dance. And
I think seniors want to have a community more. All planning is normal.
Agree. So go forth and conquer on prom. Any other questions?
Do we take temps at anything else now?
What's that?
Do we take temps at anything else right now? We talked about taking temps before people came.
Yeah.
Do we do that now for anything else?
We haven't, no. That's an added one that we would do. We use it when they come down, but that's pretty much it. So I think it's gonna be easy because we have the pre-sale of the tickets. So we'll have those tickets and they can come in, they can hand it to us and we have plenty of thermometers that we can run it through. And it's a little bit different with prom because we have the Grand March. And so we'll separate them down this hallway all the way down, and then we go into the auditorium. And then the plan is to separate juniors and seniors at that time into the comments and into the activities comments, so that we can keep a little bit more distance while we'll allow the seniors to go in first and get a visual of what it looks like.
Our big facility is a little close.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're planning on using three different areas with considerable amount of space. So
I think the temperature issue, I will say, I might want to check with public health nurses and the hospital infection person. They might be able to help you out there, give you some ideas to make that easier and enter those contacts.
Yep.
Later, may or may not be necessary, but I think that's a detail we as board don't have to worry about.
Well, and I also think that if we're circulating air with our giant fans, that will also help. But just keeping movement going.
I was just saying on a standpoint of, I feel like I get a higher temp when I have to think about wearing a suit. So I would hate to send somebody home because they had a high temp when we packed 6 or 8 people in a limo. And then that's my only, we don't do it for anything else. So I guess that would be my,
You talk and so the public health, they already want to do that. It's minorly.
I can have that conversation. Sure.
I appreciate all the work you've done on this. Thank you. Mind bringing back up this information. You want to give a motion for approval for one last time, or? Right there.
I heard the current
The motion, is there a second?
second.
Okay, the motion by Dr. Nyson, second by Mr. Elton to approve the current comp plan as presented by Mr. Byers tonight. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Byers, I think there's graduation.
Graduation. I was just going to give you guys an update on graduation. Similarly to prom, we're going to try to get back to as many of our positions as we can with mitigation strategies, obviously. One variance is changing our awards night. Our plan is to go on May 19th. There are no activities. We'll do it in the evening so that we're able to host all of our parents. We're going to do that in the gym. We can use both sides. We can have our graduates in the middle, get enough spacing. They'll only have a couple of tickets for each. So our plan is the bleachers on one side will have A through L. The other side will be M through Z. We'll go through that, through all of our scholarships. It's not mandatory for everybody. Not everybody gets a scholarship. That's another way to cut down the numbers. I personally like having them there. I also like having our students there that we've done in the past. It gives some of our younger students the opportunity to see the scholarships that we have and that we have to offer, hopefully motivating them throughout their career. But in this instance, limiting numbers obviously is important. And so the plan is to do it in the gym at 6 p.m. on the 19th. And then we'll limit just the parents can come. On the 26th will be our last day of full classes, Wednesday the 26th. On the 27th, we will go through our typical graduation practice
we will start working, hopefully soon with the elementary, principals to find out whether or not we want to do a walk, whether it's outside, a graduation walk like we've done in the past. We could do that outside rather than in the school, mitigation strategy. We always like to share, those experiences and that celebration with our, younger students so that they have things to aspire to. So that would be on the 27th, 9 o'clock graduation practice at Gaithersburg Field. We have our typical class day program on the 28th. We will have 4 tickets for the great graduation ceremony that we'll be handing out that day. We'll have our class day program at 1 o'clock, and then that will also be live streamed for the rest of the staff and students to take a part of throughout the school. We won't bring them down like we have in the past. And then our graduation this year is set for May 30th at Gaithersburg Field. We'll live stream that on Zoom TV. We'll also we'll start with the process at 1 o'clock. I've also had some good conversations with people around town where they have said they really enjoyed the victory lap that we did last year at the racetrack and the parade that we did. And so I've already contacted the racetrack, and as of right now, they're on board with that. So it's a matter of getting with Officer Nebold and just getting that planned for that day. I was told that we need to go slower so that people can actually see the graduates, because we were running behind and we were on a radio schedule. So once again, we will we'll do the stadium again with a rain date, possibly looking at limited seating in the gym, or coming back the following June 6th on a Sunday, I guess it's the field and doing it outside. I'm still working on those details, but I really feel like it was a very successful graduation last year outside, despite some of the wind and those pieces. But a lot of people enjoyed having it outside, so that's something. The plan in terms of graduation at the field will reverse everything. We will have our parents spread out in the stands this year. We'll have the stage in front of them, and then we'll be facing directly, like the kids will be out on the field. No, sorry. The stage will be midfield. We'll be facing the, yeah, right. We'll be looking at our graduates, and then behind them will be the adults. So that's the plan right now. Any suggestions or anything that you guys have heard or that you enjoyed last year? I think we went on very well last year. We need to buy down flowers this year. We're not going to order them, but we'll do something in place. Otherwise, we got a lot more time for party this year. Yep. But sounds like things are going quite well. Questions from board members? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Series 300 policy.
So last month, we forgot to put the second reading on the 300 policies. So you actually did the first reading, not last month, but the month prior. So this is simply the second reading. And we hope to have the 400 series before you next month. It's a long one. And we already had so many items. We thought you could be spared the 400 series this time. So second reading of 300 series.
Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the second reading of 300 series? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's moved by Mr. Stevens, second by Mr. Alton, to approve the second reading of the 300 series board policy. Any comments, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion passes. Superintendent's report.
So you've had a lot of items already, so I'm just going to share one thing that happened today that was a pleasant surprise is we were able to host Senator Green here and give him an opportunity to speak with some of our students about some of the opportunities they're able to attain at Boone. And he had plans to be able to tour some of the buildings, but ran short because he took more time with the students than I think planned. But really happy to have had conversations with Senator Green and share what our district needs are and what we think we could use support with from the legislative point of view, and had fantastic conversations with the students that he spoke with as well, and some of our staff. So just appreciative that he took the time to come and meet with us and meet with our students. And there are plans for him to join another activity with students later in May. So hopefully he will continue to learn about all the really great things happening here in Boone and continue to be able to share with them. But that's really all beyond everything that you already have seen this month that I have to report out.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other comments, concerns? Hearing none, we're going to do for about 5 minutes. Bathroom break, and then we have a closed session afterwards. So we'll take a 5-minute pause. Need to move to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay, move to adjourn because we have a closed session.
Yeah, we'll move that.
So we're just going to take a 5-minute break. By the way,